I think the big fail for Mark Carney, the conflict of interest. We don't know how much money he's worth. We don't know what's in the blind trust. We don't know what property or anything. We know nothing about the financial disclosures.
We knew this day was coming. Welcome back to Moose and Loose. My name's David. Today we've got Mark Carney vowing to limit free speech on the internet. He doesn't like people saying bad things about him. We've got more massive liberal failures. We've got Mark Carney getting destroyed on government media on Cpac by multiple people on a panel. Also got a big blow up between the Palestinian and Jewish communities on the campaign trail. Pierre Poilievre dropping more new plans to save Canada while Mark Carney has suspended his campaign to hide in his mansion. Let's jump into this. First up, we've got this one, Linamar, this factory here, a state-of-the-art EV plant, $1.1 billion of taxpayer money down the drain. As it says here, plant finished last year, already up for sale. It was supposed to be functional and operational February of this year, as in a month and a half ago. And instead, they're selling it now. It's never been used. So apparently, Linamar will naturally take market leadership position in this technology. Factory was expected to open February 2025. Instead, it has hit the real estate market. Another liberal failure. Jumping ahead, we got Food Professor posting this. So this is a list of, as he said, more than 30 major business leaders are endorsing the Conservatives and urging Canadians to vote for real change on April 28th. Impressive list of people. Take a look. So these are all major business leaders across Canada. It's interesting that the banker, the central banker, is not getting this endorsement. That should say a lot to everyone across Canada. Got this one posted by Mark Nixon. I've seen a lot of people posting about this $40.3 billion parliament spending, people saying the Liberals are stealing money. This is a bridge loan, essentially. It's bridging the budget. The budget ends at the very end of March, April 1st, they need a new budget to keep things running, healthcare, schools, roads, etc. That's what this is, but a bunch of people have been digging into this, and as you can see here from Mark Nixon, the CBC got another $178 million. CRA got $663 million to come after us to take our tax money. That's absurd. And CSIS only got 127 million. So that's right. The CBC is getting more funding than our national security agency. Moving ahead, we got Pierre Poilievre posting this report. It doesn't look good for Canada as it predicts the middle class is doomed. Canadians should expect to become poorer over the next 5 years, says Privy Council report. Congratulations, Liberals. Also got Poilievre posting this one. Toronto's tent encampments are up 20%, expanding into areas they've never seen before. Let's just go back a minute and remember that 10 years ago, when Justin Trudeau first got in, there was no tent encampments anywhere. Now we've normalized seeing tents anywhere and everywhere. There's a tent literally across the street down in the bush over here. Liberals' policies have pushed people to poverty. This election will be the most important in Canadian history. And we see that with stuff like this. We got Sun Duran posting this. This guy who's post car content. Well, look at this. Canadians are having to put a boot on their own vehicles in their own driveway because car theft is so rampant in this country now after the Liberals have made it easy for car thieves to get away with this stuff. A third world country, South Africa? Nope, it's Liberal and NDP utopia. And here's another flavor of liberal utopia. Look at this. We've got Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. This was a 2015 Chinese military parade honoring the People's Liberation Army. Mark Carney's new candidate that replaced Paul Chang, so we're talking about Peter Yuan, was at this event. Only Mark Carney's ministers, MPs, or candidates would be involved in such stuff. The Chinese corruption is rampant in this country. So Dan McTeague posting this one. So these are all Bright Drop EVs made by GM. This is a plant that was essentially just shut down. Nobody's buying these things. The Liberals spent our money on this stuff and we get nothing for it now. Moving over to the Western Standard here, we've got Carney vows to push for internet censorship. Says here Prime Minister Carney says a re-elected Liberal government will move forward with new regulations targeting harmful online content, making a third attempt to legislate internet speech in Canada. Carney did not offer specific details on what new legislation might look like. Hate speech is already illegal in Canada under amendments to the Criminal Code introduced in 1970. The Liberal government has twice attempted to pass laws that would allow regulation of certain forms of legal online content. Now, the specific quote that Mark Carney said that stirred up this entire article, we can see here. Let's just get it straight from the horse's mouth. So to set this up, Mark Carney gets heckled about Joffrey Eggstein. They start chanting Carney, Carney, Carney. It quiets down. That's where it picks up here. He'll get heckled again. Listen closely. And then he says everything.
Stewing. Thank you. Because we need to do it because...
The story of what you did to the children on that...
Come on. Come on. Come on.
There's that really awkward smile again.
You know what? one of the things that is,
This is crazy. He's lost control of the room. People don't respect this guy. Got all the barking seals here, trying to cover up people heckling the guy. It turns out that a lot of conservatives, or they could be NDP or Green supporters, are going there to heckle Carney.
you know, it's interesting. Earlier today, I'll get back to Trump and trade and everything, because we can't avoid it. But earlier today, we announced a series of measures on crime. And we announced a series of measures with respect to online harm and other factors. And one of the observations we had, one of the issues we're dealing with, there's many serious issues that we're dealing with, but one of them is with respect to really just the sea of misogyny, anti-Semitism, hatred, conspiracy theories, this sort of pollution that's online that washes over our virtual borders from the United States.
He's blaming the criticism of him coming from America. It's like, Carney, you got to sleep in your own bed, man. This is a guy who, when he was chair of Brookfield, you can see here under violation tracker how many environmental and safety violations came from that company. This guy gets heckled about his record and he doesn't like it. In this case, he's getting heckled about the Joffrey Eggstein situation. Then he should come clean. Why does he have direct connections with the people in the photos he was standing next to? Maybe he should come clean why Brookfield Corporation here is getting an air pollution violation in 2023 when he was chair of Brookfield for $43 million. Is this guy the eco-green knight that people really thinks he is? Or this $910,000 hazardous waste violation? Does Mark Carney care about the environment, or does he just care about money?
This sort of pollution that's online that washes over our virtual borders from the United States. And that's a mild version of that. That's fine. I can take the conspiracy theory and all that. But the more serious things is when it affects how people behave in our society. When Canadians are threatened going to their community centers or their places of worship or their schools, or God forbid, when it affects our children. So my government, if we are elected, will be taking action on those American giants that come across.
They'll be taking action. They'll be suppressing free speech.
Now, our border with the United States is changing. Period. I'm back on Trump, I'm afraid. He won't go away. He will not.
So let's just go back there. Mark Carney says the conspiracy theories. Now, some element of what people are heckling him for haven't been proven, but what is proven, he's standing right next to Joffrey Eggstein's accomplice. You can see here in this Wilderness Festival, Cornbury Park. Here's another photo of him standing right next to her. So this stuff is not being pulled out of nowhere. Goes on to say former Heritage Minister Pascal St-Onge said earlier this year that the government remained committed to addressing online discourse. We are in challenging times now. Respect is lacking in public discourse. That is unbelievable for her to say that, considering they won't release the SDTC documents. We don't know what kind of corruption it is in there, but we know that the Liberals have dished out hundreds of millions of dollars of our tax dollars to well-connected insiders. This is theft of tax dollars. So no wonder people are pissed off in the public. She goes on to say misinformation circulates easier than facts. Debate is being monetized by algorithms and social media. She goes on to talk about the importance of freedom of expression. We need to make sure it exists and it's protected. She said, yet the same freedom of expression is currently being exploited and undermined. It's funny that she says that because Mark Carney's going around telling everyone that Donald Trump is going to steal our water and steal our land. He is misinforming Canadians. He's fear-mongering for his own personal benefit. Listen to this absolute nonsense.
Canadians are threatened going to their community centers or their places of worship or their schools.
Yeah, they are, and you guys have allowed this. You guys have enabled these people. Next up, we got David Jacobs posting this one. It says, could you imagine walking out of a church and having these R-word gangs taunting people? That's a reality for Jews in Canada under Trudeau. Now it's continuing under Carney. So what we're seeing is Palestinian protesters here. You can see a group of people walking. I'll just show you. These guys are taunting them as they come out of church at night. This is not okay.
The walk of shame over here.
Unfortunately, the rising tide of hatred online is overflowing onto our streets. Violence and intimidation have no place in Canada. Anti-Semitism and Islamophobia must be denounced in the strongest possible terms.
This is just disgusting rhetoric. There's all these cop cars. Do something. Why is liberal Jewish candidate Evan Solomon not speaking up? Because he's too busy doing art deals with Mark Carney. It's a church. Where is it? Since when is it legal? What are the police doing? Disturbing a religious worship or certain meetings. Every person who willfully disturbs or interrupts an assemblage of persons met for a religious worship for moral, social, benevolent purpose is guilty of an offense punishable on the summary conviction. It is against the law what they're doing here. So as you can see here, Mark Carney, a complete hypocrite. I mean, we've got this one coming out today, shared by Senator Leo Housakos here. He says, what excuse will Mark Carney use this time? The word, I don't want to say that word, the G word, Gino, is pretty loud and clear. Mr. Carney needs to clarify what his government's position is on Israel's right to defend itself and deal with Adam Van Koeverden, who's speaking in this video, accordingly. So here's Adam Van Koeverden. Listen to this.
Everybody to know that our voices, your voices, will be strong in Ottawa, strong to condemn the genocide and end the genocide in Gaza, to continue to make sure that the Palestinian voices are heard in Ottawa by our leaders, and to make sure that Canada continues to stand strong for Palestinian safety. And
that sums it up there. This is the same guy who posted this after Stephen Harper endorsed Pierre Poilievre. Congrats to Pierre Poilievre on his endorsement from Stephen Harper. He joins felons like Conrad Black, conspiracy fraudsters like Alex Jones, and N-word saluters like Elon Musk and far-right influencers Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, and Ben Shapiro. This guy's an unhinged lunatic, just like Charlie Angus. Both these guys need to be thrown out. And in response to all of this, Pierre Poilievre with a strong message.
My closing message on this to Canada's Jewish community is you are not alone. You have friends. Canadians stand with you. You have the right to wear your Star of David, your Cpac, and to have your mezuzah on your door. You should feel proud to be Jewish, and you should never have to hide your Jewishness in order to stay safe. And as your Prime Minister, I will fight for your safety, your security, and your acceptance every single day.
That sounds like a prime minister to me, unlike Mark Carney wanting to limit free speech. And what do we get from mainstream media? We get more garbage like this. For shame, Global News.
After stumping with him earlier this week, Pierre Poilievre was channeling his inner Stephen Harper.
We need a change in government with a new conservative leadership that has a Canada First economic action plan.
No new policies announced by the Conservatives, just recycling an old slogan.
Generations.
A throwback to these ads and signs that Stephen Harper had dotting highways.
Okay, so he said no new action plans. I have two of them in this video, literally from the last 2 days, where Mark Carney is hiding like a frightened turtle in his mansion. Pierre Poilievre is actually trying to save our country. Global News.
Bridges and schools after the Great Recession.
The Canadian taxpayers.
Which Harper brought in after beating Paul Martin in 2006.
So this video goes on to just keep trying to slander Pierre as much as possible. Global News is disgraceful.
Poilievre's abortion response came from one of only 4 questions asked by media outlets chosen by the Conservatives. Asked if he was afraid to take reporters' questions, Poilievre pivoted to blame Mark Carney.
That's why he is not responding to questions. I'm here sharing a message of hope and change.
While Mark Carney and the other party leaders might not answer all the questions we ask them, they take considerably more compared to Pierre Poilievre. Despite
This is ridiculous, dude. You know it. Mark Carney only allows very few select journalists in. They can ask questions. He knows they're all going to be softball questions that make him look good.
the fact that Conservatives promised the most accessible and transparent campaign in Canadian history.
Pierre Poilievre is not allowing journalists who have proven to misrepresent him in the media ask him questions. This is not unreasonable. You guys need to do a better job if you want to have access. That's why he's allowing local reporters ask him questions, because they have local problems that they need solved, not a dirty agenda that you guys are trying to push. Liberal checks must have arrived today. Journalism is dead in Canada. God, you people are desperate. My God, can you stop shilling for the LPC? Next, heading over to Cpac. This is the government's own media, their media desk here. They bring on people, they interview people. Typically, it doesn't get that much coverage, but in this case, it brought in Robert Fife and some other people. Mark Carney gets absolutely slammed over and over and over.
I think the big fail for Mark Carney is his refusal to make sure that we know what he has got declared as a conflict of interest. We don't know how much money he's worth. We don't know what's in the blind trust. We don't know what property or anything. We know nothing about the financial disclosures that we do know for every other political leader because they're in Parliament. And before this election is over, we should see that. But clearly they're dragging their feet on that. And I think that is a failure of leadership.
It is a big failure of leadership. We got another clip here where they continue.
So here you have Mark Carney getting the chance to be prime ministerial by suspending his campaign once again. Conservatives calling this a bit of a political manipulation happening. Bob, what do you make of it?
Well, I think they're right. I mean, when we heard on Thursday that he was going to come back, to spend his campaign to come back, it just didn't pass the smell test. On the other instance, when he came back to deal with serious issues of Trump imposing tariffs against Canada, clearly that was within the scope of him being the prime minister. None of the opposition parties had objected to him doing so. It was the right thing to do. But this thing on Friday really wasn't anything. I mean, he came back to talk to his cabinet and to tell officials to make sure that you put in some kind of a negotiating plan for whoever is the next prime minister. Really, you didn't need to come back to do that. And I think at some level, they knew that themselves, because when Mr. Carney came out on today and all he did was make a brief statement in French and English, and then he didn't take questions from reporters. So probably because people like Tonda would say, hey, what is this?
Well, I did say that, as a matter of fact. I found myself barking at him as he left. Are you just campaigning now?
Yeah, well, and that's the point, though. I mean, if you're trying to make a moment, all he did was give a statement in English, statement in French. Very quick moment to be suspending a campaign for.
And there are questions to be asked of the government and of a prime minister in this role right now. There are big questions around how is this government engaging with China on the agricultural tariffs. Scott Moe, right after that cabinet meeting, I went down to scrum him at the conference downtown. And, you know, he said he thinks that the government ought to be engaging right now with China. And there are some steps being taken on the ambassador's part.
They're not engaging because Mark Carney is business partners with Xi Jinping. He's not going to grill the guy who just handed over his former company $276 million. That's why he's not doing anything for Saskatchewan regarding the canola 100% tariffs. He doesn't care. Mark Carney does not care about Canadians. He's only serving his own business interests. I mean, look at this panel. We have 4 people laughing at Mark Carney. The guy is absolutely humiliated on every single news network, including their very own government news network here, saying what he did doesn't pass the sniff test. Everyone's getting a waft of that thick, rank net zero agenda, and it stinks.
But that he believes that, yes, sure, there's a campaign on, but just as Carney is trying to protect the auto and steel and aluminum sectors, he ought to be working on also protecting the agricultural sector. No questions asked, questions asked, no questions taken. And
that's exactly it. Mark Carney takes 0 questions. He took 0 questions when he was outside talking with some people. He took 0 questions after his little brief briefing there. He just wanted to suspend his campaign because he's an awful speaker. And the more he speaks, the more people realize they should not be voting for him.
I think that showed that was a misstep on Carney's part and on the Liberal campaign's part, actually. If you think you benefit from him looking prime ministerial, then act like a prime minister and take a couple of questions. I thought it was unacceptable today.
And that's a good point, because
wow, she just told Carney to act like a prime minister, not pretend to be one.
The fact of the matter is he has, in the course of this campaign 3 weeks in, seemed much more comfortable playing prime minister than he has campaigning as Liberal leader. What do you make of it?
Same diagnostic, that Mr. Carney is more at ease being prime minister or acting like prime minister than being actually a leader of the party who's seeking a mandate. And I guess most Liberals would wish that April 28th was yesterday, so that it could be already in motion and making decision and forming government. And this was pretty much obvious to everyone that this is an occasion that Mr. Carney took just to show again that he can be prime ministerial, while the others cannot have the same occasion. So.
Yeah, that guy's right there. He's just taking this opportunity to look like a prime minister and get away from all the questions. Mark Carney's just as big a snake, if not a bigger snake, than Justin Trudeau. Next up, we got Pierre Poilievre announcing another plan here, this time for our veterans.
For too long, the Carney-Trudeau Liberals have promised to stand by our veterans, and they let them down. Liberals promised to bring back lifelong pensions for injured veterans. They broke that promise. Liberals promised veterans would never have to fight their own government in court just to get their benefits. They broke that promise. They promised to make it easier for veterans to access services. They broke that promise too. Under the Liberals, the number of veterans waiting for disability benefits has exploded. Case managers were cut. Veterans were left stranded. And when they asked for help, Trudeau said,
they're asking for more than we are able to give right now.
More than we can give, while he handed millions of dollars to a convicted terrorist. Our heroes deserve better. A Pierre Poilievre-led Conservative government will deliver better. So let me share with you part of our Canada First plan for Canada's veterans. First, we'll ensure veterans' benefits are in place before they leave the military. No more waiting. Second, we'll prioritize veterans for jobs in the public service, doubling the hiring target at Veterans Affairs and fast-tracking the renewal of security clearances for veterans who already have them. Third, we'll incorporate spouses of veterans and Canadian Forces members into the Veterans Hiring Act. Fourth, we'll give preference to veteran-owned businesses in federal contracts. Fifth, we'll help veterans transition from helmets to hard hats. Upon release, veterans would be provided with documentation they need to have their skills recognized by civilian employers. By creating a Red Seal system, veterans would bypass regulatory gatekeepers and be able to put their skills to work in the civilian world. We will also work to ensure veterans get post-secondary course credit for skills and knowledge they gained while serving in the forces. For example, a young veteran going back to business school should get credit for courses on leadership if they already have a background in leadership positions in the forces. Finally, we will work to review and remove clawbacks of military pensions for veterans who get jobs. They shouldn't be punished for working. Their new income should be on top of their pension, not in place of it.
This is all just amazing stuff. This is really on point. How could a veteran vote for Mark Carney when Pierre is coming out with stuff like this?
Veterans shouldn't have to fight their own government for the benefits they've earned. But under Trudeau and the Liberals, they faced endless delays and denials, waiting months or even years for disability claims. To fix what the Liberals broke, a Conservative government will 1. Automatically approve disability applications if they aren't processed within 16 weeks. 2. Give veterans full control over their medical records. 3. Let military doctors assess injuries using one standardized system, no more bureaucratic roadblocks. 4. Ensure PTSD service dogs are available to veterans who need them with a national standard of support. And 5. We will make available the education and training benefit to veterans immediately upon receiving their release date. We'll also make sure that our military veterans have proper recognition and honor in our public spaces. Liberals have held up military memorials and delayed recognition for our troops. That's why a Conservative government will restore respect for our heroes.
This is all just great stuff. Going forward, what will be the action that the Carney Liberals take? Is Carney going to come out of hiding, or is he going to bunker down his mansion and wait for the election? We're up against some major forces here, as you saw with Global News, saying that Pierre just recycling some old slogan comes up with nothing new, when literally there's something new every single day. And Mark Carney is the one with nothing new, and when he does come up with something new, it's just stolen from Pierre Poilievre.